A year ago today, in fact, a year ago this very minute, I was sitting somewhere over here in the Great Day Houston studios with our city and county leaders. We were talking about Hurricane Harvey. We were praying that we could get through the worst, hoping for the best. And like so many of you, the KHOU 11 studios have dealt with storms before. Shortly after we were built in 1961, we had some water come in. Of course, Tropical Storm Allison, we had a few inches of water as well. But ultimately, it would be Hurricane Harvey that drove us out of this building for good. We took on several feet of water during a live broadcast. Coming up on this hour of Great Day Houston, we're going to take a look back and we will celebrate what we found was so great about our city. Basically, disaster created even a stronger community. We're also going to take a look at what we can do better to weather a storm next time, because as we all know in Houston, there will be a next time. Great Day Houston starts now.
A special edition of Great Day Houston. Houston Stronger, presented by Texas Mattress Makers. And now here's your host, Deborah Duncan.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this special edition of Great Day Houston. If we were Houston strong in the aftermath of Harvey, 1 year later, as a city, we're Houston stronger. KHOU 11 is still in the process of rebuilding. We share that journey with thousands of you who lost your homes and businesses. My co-host today is an expert on Houston weather. He grew up here and always wanted to be a meteorologist, to the point that he called up the local weatherman and asked if he could come hang out at the station. It worked. As you know, David Paul is the chief meteorologist at KHOU 11. Good morning.
Good morning, Deborah. It's nice to see you. It's nice to be here under different circumstances.
Yeah.
With the only problems I can see out there right now is traffic on the Pierce elevator.
Yeah, all right, traffic will always be the problem. You and I rode through several storms together, Katrina, Rita, and Ike. We were on the morning news together. Yeah. My son asked the question the other day. He goes, Mom, why do we just seem to be a magnet for hurricanes? And your explanation is going to be much better than I gave.
You know, it's a great question. It seems like, do we have a hurricane magnet somewhere planted across Harris County in Galveston and Houston? And we don't, but because we're on the Gulf Coast. The warm water of the Gulf of Mexico, the Atlantic Ocean, the Caribbean Sea, that's where these hurricanes come from, and from time to time, they're going to strike here, and we're going to have to deal with them.
Yeah, and obviously we can't change those things about our city, but there are things we can do to lessen the impact of heavy rain. You may have seen the commercials asking you to vote tomorrow for a referendum on flooding. As part of his job, Harris County Judge Ed Emmett is also the Director of Emergency Management, which includes coordinating efforts to deal with severe weather. And this time last year, you were sitting in our studios at Great Day.
Yes, we were.
Yeah, and we didn't know what was about to happen. But since then, this is the storm that really got us even more busy about doing something about it. On the so-called Harvey bond, what are we looking at?
We're looking at $2.5 billion, which is not the end. That's kind of the down payment. It's a recognition that we have to prioritize flood control and resilience. You know, it wasn't just Harvey. We had Tax Day flood, Memorial Day flood. Harvey was just the third in less than 3 years. And enough is enough. And you saw all those piles of debris, and I keep telling people that's not debris. Those were people's lives out on the curb, and we have to make sure that never happens again. Yeah,
$2.5 billion. That sounds like a lot if it was in a checking account, for example, right? But as you mentioned, it is kind of that drop in the bucket. What's the first priority that we want to take care of?
Well, the very first priority is 700 to 900 million of that will be used to draw down the federal dollars that are available so that we can complete the projects like Brace, White Oak, Hunting Bayou, Clear Creek. And then we have to pay attention to areas that frankly haven't gotten attention in the past. Cypress Creek, San Jacinto River, all of those kinds of things. But the whole thing really comes down to making sure that we're resilient. As you said, we live on the Gulf Coast. We're going to continue to get rains, and we just cannot allow that many of our residents to continue to suffer.
$2.5 billion. Billion. But as we were talking earlier, you made the point to me that it's not just the city of Houston we're talking about.
Oh,
that money goes to all the watersheds across Harris County, which is just a gargantuan area to manage floodwaters in this area.
Yeah, 22 watersheds. All of them were impacted by Harvey. Yeah. That was the real wake-up call. And yeah, 2.2 million people live in Houston itself, but more than that live outside of the city of Houston.
Yeah. Kind of break this down for us, because when we hear bond, we're borrowing money, and people are asking, how do we pay for it? And if it comes through property taxes, a lot of folks feel like they're so stretched right now. But break it down for us in terms of, it's if you consider what we could possibly get out of it, it's not that much extra money.
No, it's really not. And county government only gets property tax. We don't have a choice. That's our only option. But the first year it's $5 a year for the average homeowner. Wow. And if you're over 65, you don't pay any county property taxes on the first $200,000 value of your home. So this isn't school taxes, it's not city taxes, this is just county, and they're relatively low right now.
Yeah, speaking of relatively low, oftentimes what happens on elections that aren't like connected to a presidential election, people don't necessarily turn out. So what's it looking like right now with early voting, and what do you have to say to encourage people to get out? Whichever way you vote, you got to get out there and vote.
Well, we had 92,000 people vote early, which is actually a good number compared to like last November, the off-year election. But people have got to go vote. As everybody said, Harvey brought us all together. We were in Harvey together. Now we got to face the future together, and I have the sense that people are going to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the things I really appreciated about Harris County Flood Control, Office of Emergency Management during Harvey was your honesty. When we were overwhelmed, you were straight with the people, with all of us. We're overwhelmed. We're struggling. There are some things that are unknown right now. We're in a situation that we've never been in right now. Right. And with the flood bonds, they are going to help mitigate in many ways the flood threat. They can't stop flooding every time, all the time. But I think it's great that we're trying to make this effort to do what we can do, what's within our power to do, and sometimes Mother Nature just can't get away from us.
Yeah, our whole purpose is to remove the most people from harm's way.
Yeah.
That's all we care about. Commissioner's Court, and that's why the bond has been endorsed. Leave politics out of it. On the political spectrum, everybody from the left to the right are on board, and there's no real organized opposition. But we all have seen this in the past. You know, if people don't go vote, you get surprised. So people have to go vote tomorrow.
All right, Judge Emmett, we know you have a meeting to get to. Thank you very much for stopping by. Okay, so David, you and I have oftentimes talked about storms and said each one of them has their own fingerprint. And so with Harvey, 21 trillion gallons of rain. This was like the bad cousin of Allison, because that's what Allison had done to us.
It was like your big brother sits on you and you won't get up.
Yeah.
If I had a big brother, he would do that to me. And Allison was really a one-day event in 2001. Harvey, a 4 to 5 day event. You know, and with Allison, it was 1 or 2 spots that had those 20 to 30 inch rain totals. With Harvey, county-wide, unprecedented. We've never seen it before.
And the crazy thing is when they saw it coming in, it kept going back and forth of how bad it was going to be. But you had that warm ocean water and then the warm atmosphere. And both those together provide just energy for a hurricane, don't they?
And we were on what's called the dirty side of that storm for 4 days. That's the side with all the lift and all the moisture coming off the Gulf of Mexico, focused right into Houston, Galveston. It was a rare, unusual setup, and we just got really unlucky with it sitting on us for so long.
Yeah, well, the bayous are the way Mother Nature naturally drains floodwaters, but it doesn't always happen fast enough. And as for our man-made infrastructure, like many cities, it's old. And for those areas that always flood, what options do they have? Steve Costello has been called the city's flood czar, but his official title is Chief Resilience Officer. And as you know, the joke in Houston is if you spit in Houston, somebody's going under. So we just are naturally, prone to floods. But we talked to Judge Emmett about what they do, but you are in the position of kind of coordinating between local and state and federal.
That's correct. My role for the mayor is to meet with all agencies relative to flooding and drainage. And we have to remind our citizens that we're subject to flooding urban-wise, and I deal with the urban infrastructure. I need to be able to deliver the water to the issues, to the bayous, like flood control is going to be handling with the bond issue. And so I need that capacity.
And speaking of capacity, but also how old it is. That's what we found out in New Orleans when the levees broke. It was infrastructure issues, which a lot of cities have.
So over 80% of our stormwater infrastructure is beyond its useful life, and it's undersized. And so as we move forward improving the neighborhoods, we have to rebuild that infrastructure. And those are some of the challenges we have.
What you're facing with the urban flooding, when the raindrops hit the street and they go into the gutters on their way to the bayou, that is, right now, it's like when we get a heavy rain, it's like trying to put an elephant through a straw. It's just not big enough to handle the rainfall rates and the amounts that we get here sometimes.
Well, that's correct, because back in the mid-'80s is when we changed design criteria to make sure that water goes downhill. We have some older parts of the city that are not the case, that the streets are actually lower than the bayou that it drains to, so they act like bathtubs.
Yeah, there are some parts of the city that flood every single time. So some of the options you might be looking at is taking that FEMA money and buying those folks out?
So we have a number of options available to us, but obviously in those areas that have frequent flooding, we are using FEMA dollars to buy them out. Problem with federal dollars is you have to have a willing seller.
Yeah.
And so some of the challenges we have in these areas is that sellers don't want to sell.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you have lived one place your whole life. Maybe it's a family business that has been there for 50, 60 years. And you don't want to move. You don't want to leave your home. And maybe your customers wouldn't know where to go to find you. So human nature is such that we don't want to move. But when we're faced with flooding in these same spots over and over again, you know, that's the time to rethink
In fact,
it.
a little bit later on the show, we'll talk to a man who actually took matters into his own hands. It's interesting to see what he did, because he said he will never, ever flood again. All right, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure, thank you.
Okay, well, when we come back, at a time when law enforcement was at odds with communities across the country, here in Houston, police officers worked hand in hand with the general public to rescue our neighbors. Houston Police Chief Art Acevedo says it's a great example of what this city is made of. He is next, but first, we would have Mayor Sylvester Turner here, but he is in Chicago this morning, and he's trying to get that DNC to come to Houston, but he left us with this message.
I'm sorry I can't be with you in the studio today. But to everyone watching Great Day Houston, yes, the challenges remain. We have too many people living in homes that need to be repaired and refurnished. We're waiting for more federal housing assistance that has been promised. I'm proud of this city and the people who have donated or volunteered to help their neighbors recover over the past year. If you're waiting for help, I want you to know you are not forgotten. We're working on your situation, and we are not going to leave you where you are today. We are in this together because we are Houston strong.